Alrighty. What's going on, guys? It's me, Thick Boy, 6969. And I was just watching a video on YouTube about a guy who was working for a place for 9 years, barely taking any time off, and eventually, after 9 years, his company just canned him. Not even talked to him in person or anything like that, and it kind of reminded me about how last year was. So, just to pretty much get going on this, I know I'm streaming this, but I'm only doing it because I don't want to deal with Wondershare, deal with transferring a file into an MP4 and then uploading it to YouTube, doing things like that, and risking the case that it doesn't really upload at all. But anyhow, turn that down all the way so that you're hearing me. So, last summer, I got a job with a small HVAC company. And when I say small, it was small. It was about a crew of 5 guys, with only me and the owner actually knowing about the trade. The other guys, they were high school kids, and one young guy, and they were just helpers. But for the first 2 months that I worked for him, it was good. You know, we had W-2 pay, which means that the pay was consistent, it was hourly, and it was supportive, at least for, 6 months or so. But of course, I didn't work for him that long, and I'll get to the reason why later. But I worked for him at this small company. Thought it'd be unique a unique experience on being a part of a growing company, and at least from where I was thinking about it, possibly being a part of that growth, and I don't know, being like his right hand man or something in it. Kind of optimistic, but guess I needed it at that time. But after the 2 month mark, we were doing a rough in at this big ass barnuminium, and it was a pain in the ass. I mean, shit was constantly changing, and one thing I really wish that the owner would have done was just be there for an hour, show where everything's going, and just have like an end goal for the day. But it wasn't really that. He give insight on the first things to do in the morning, and then just leave it at that. It's raining right now. And then, just me, I only knew about HVAC. I didn't know anything more about construction at that time. Oh, damn. Getting fucking reverb going on right now. probably change it to that. Oh, it's still fucking sounding through. Hello? Son of a bitch. Wait a minute. It's my damn TV. I'm sorry. Oh, where'd I put that remote at? Alright. Hello? Okay. Yeah, I apologize if this shit's echoing through. Kind of the suck ass thing about streaming, but as I was saying, I know what to do up until a certain point because I've only done HVAC ventilation rough ends before. But as I was saying, get the first few things done, and then I have to call them. Sometimes I have to call them a good amount of time. But even though I had an associate's degree with this shit, it didn't really mean specifically that I knew everything about this field, about the HVAC trade. And as a matter of fact, once I finally got laid off, excuse me, but once I finally got laid off, I caught up with it quickly, which is kind of funny, I guess. But that Barndominium, I didn't realize it at the time, but it was the first weight to get thrown on my back. If I had worked at a larger company and I had a guy above me who knew how to do installs for new construction homes and whatnot, then I would have been better off. I would have learned a whole lot more. But the guy who I worked for, the owner, he had me as an apprentice. And if someone has an apprentice underneath them, their main job is to, for one, get the job done, but to also teach the guy who's under him the ways of how to go about with new construction, old construction, and change outs. But he didn't do that with me. And that was where a mistake happened. A mistake that I didn't even see until he pointed out afterwards. Either he did or I did, regardless of the case. The first 2-3 months, I should have been by his side, learning how he did things, how to do them right. But as I said before, that didn't happen. And even after I told him, about it, and he saw through it, it was like a day's worth of work. And then after that, he let me be again. I could kind of see it from another side, though, because while I was doing the new construction houses, he was going around doing service calls, and there were times where it was literally just me and him working. But get my words together here. It's gonna be a little slow explain. I'm gonna be a little bit slow explaining things, but I'll do it to the best that I can. But as I was saying, I thought working for a small company, being a part of growing with them, would lead me somewhere good. But coincidentally enough, September 11th, I don't know, 3 days before that, he hired a guy, and we were working at an old house, probably 50s, maybe even late 40s. And this guy that I was with, he was extremely worried about the risk of asbestos, which he wasn't wrong about it. But kind of add on top of it, I seen the company pretty much not really growing, and the fact that, you know, he laid off two other full-time guys before. Actually, no, he laid off one, and the other guy who he hired and was on for like a week just quit. And the barndominium that we were building, it started to take a toll, and it started to wear on my mind. And I started to get to a point there to where I just started getting lazy with working. I still get the job done, but if I don't know how to go about with it, especially if it's something new and something that I've never really seen before, there's no way I can wrap my head around it. And it's going to take longer than a day or two to know how to figure that shit out. But as I was saying, I was beginning to lose steam, but I was trying to keep up with it. And for that week before I got laid off, or before the new guy came along, I felt like things would be going well. But the new guy got on, and he talked and talked and talked, and then that talking became complaining. Then eventually, I just told him, if you want to take it up to the owner, because technically he has that right, as far as my knowledge goes. And he brought it up to him, but that guy was the final straw for me, because I could not work around a guy who just complained nonstop. Now, I'm not saying, he wasn't wrong with what he was complaining about. But at the same time, though, I've never dealt with anybody like that before, nor at that level to where it's just me and him. I had no idea, no contingency of how to discuss things with him. But eventually, he spoke his piece with the owner. The owner, after hearing him out, the guy didn't want to work at the house because he didn't want to work at the house. He didn't want to work at the house because there was a possible hazard, a work hazard that was there. But regardless of that, he just said, the owner just said, you're done. You're finished. Laid off. And of course, with the growing weight on my mind about working at this house and how that guy just complaining and complaining and complaining, it just added on to a point to where I just looked at him and I just said, let's just take a day. I didn't go like that. I just told him. He eventually got around to just having me take off for the day. But the thing about that, though, was that the house needed to be done that day. But the new guy, and just feeling a bad omen about not really working at that house, but just working for that company, it they crossed the line. And then he eventually called me up. He asked me if I wanted to go back. And of course, with how I was feeling at that point, I told him no. And then whatever went on in his mind, he hired the new guy back on just after laying him off. I had to pick him up, take him to the house. The owners of the property, they weren't happy because, well, the shit wasn't done. And the owner came up, he spoke to us, and right then and there, he said to us that, we're no longer needed. He's going a different route with the company, and he was going solo. Now, of course, that wasn't a decision he made overnight. This wasn't a decision after, working at a house for too long and just having a guy quit on him. No, this was something that he was thinking about 2 months prior. Literally, sometime in July or August, he had this thought of going about with the company differently. And for 2 months, he was thinking about it. And for 2 months, he could have made that decision at any time. But right then and there, on September 11th, he made it final. But that's not really the gist of why I have such frustration towards him. The other things that came that kind of added to my frustration at working there was, for one, the pay. I mean, $15 an hour for an apprentice, you think is pretty good, especially for the case in North Carolina where the minimum wage is $7.25 an hour. But it wasn't really the pay. It was what he was having me doing. I didn't mind the work. Of course, as long as it was safe to do, I didn't mind the work. But it was the fact that he was paying me, an apprentice, and as the position that was labeled on Indeed, which was a installer helper / apprentice, I should have only been doing that. But no, whenever he left to go do other jobs, he either go and do them alone or take another guy with him. And this was over the summer. And when he left, I would have to take charge of 2 to 3 other people. And these were high school kids. But yet still though, $15 an hour, or an apprentice getting paid $15 an hour, should not be taking management roles at that level. Now, of course, I did the best that I could, but I think back to it now and I'm just like, nah, that shit wasn't right. That shit shouldn't have happened at all. And it wasn't until I had an interview at another place about almost 2 months ago that was pointed out to me. Now, of course, it took that long, September to December to figure that out. But yet still, though, an apprentice taking management roles time to time, that shit shouldn't happen. It shouldn't happen. Regardless of experience, regardless of knowledge, regardless of potential leadership skills, that should not have happened at all. And it frustrates me that I was getting underpaid for doing that kind of fucking work. At the time, I didn't know. At the time, I thought, the company would get to a point to where it grew, but it never grew. And in the end, it didn't even take that path. So, after I got laid off there, I started job searching. Mainly focusing on HVAC and delivery driver roles since, the one thing I liked about working there was the drives. Driving. That's what I liked. And I thought, hey, maybe I can go ahead and go about with this. But I went to interviews at HVAC companies, and all but one just either told me, we're going forward with different applicants, or I didn't hear from them at all. Some companies, they did keep me in, but the one company that was able to hire me on the spot, I still kind of regret it to this day, but I just had a bad feeling about the place. Now, you can take that excuse as in any way that you can, but hopefully the decisions that I make this year will alleviate that. And I'll get to that later. But as I said, all but one company said that they're going to move forward with someone else, or I didn't hear back from them at all. And it sucked. And it sucked because the day and the month that guy laid me off was the same time that, excuse me, but it was the same time that HVAC companies were starting to slow down. It was the end of the summer season, the end of the busy season. And shit would not speed up again until mid-January, where the temperatures really started to get cold. And especially within the last week, where we just got like 18 inches of snow here. And I'm not fucking kidding. We literally got that much. But shit would not get busy until the temps pretty much plummeted. Because in the fall, it's mild, it's cool, humidity is, a little bit to average, 60 to 50%. And there's just no need for any work to get done on units because they're living the easy life at that point. But my first job search ended whenever I got on to be a helper for a friend of my sister and brother-in-law who builds fences. And the work wasn't really consistent, but the pay, it was good. It was a good amount of cash to have on hand just for me to keep going. But after a quick, run in with a homeowner who wanted to do change orders and not pay that guy until he did something else, it kind of put a stop to me wanting to work with him until the spring. And so I started my job search again, and it was pretty much the same. Went out to companies, I applied, I got interviews to some places, and one place I haven't even heard back from at all. But then it got to a point with working for that other guy, and this was a small company as well. But it got to a point with working with that other guy to where I was just like, I'm fucking beating myself up. I'm wearing myself down. And I really don't want to be at his age and feel the same way that he does. Hearing something outside. So, by the week of Christmas, he paid me from the last job I did with him. And that's been the last I have heard from him. I don't know what he's doing or how he's doing. I haven't even heard anything from my sister or my brother-in-law. But regardless, at that point, I just want a stability. I wanted a very, very good stepping stone. Now, working at that small company over the summer, it did provide me with the knowledge and the know-how of what goes into construction. But last month I was really thinking, and I was thinking good and hard, that to a certain degree I'm good at construction, but building a house, building a deck, building anything larger than a small shed, I'm not really good at. And I'm being upfront and honest with this shit because that's what I was thinking. But one thing I am good at are teardowns. Yes, it's physical. It's hard if you do it by hand. You tear down, you load everything up, you dump everything off by hand. It's hard. But this is where I'm getting at this. Today, or back in mid-January, I was trying to get on to Lowe's, and I tried about 3 times until I finally got on to a location nearby, about 20 minutes away. And they started to move forward with me. And I was just like, holy shit. Holy shit. This is great. And on top of that, it'd be part-time, $15 an hour. Wouldn't be working that much, but, if I prove myself, get on to full-time, then I can start earning more. And on top of that, in late December, I started to do DoorDash. And, I just started putting the pieces together, and I was just like, what if I work at a place that's well established and I start earning enough to eventually buy my own place and start going the route of doing demo work? But back to Lowe's, they moved me on. I took the drug test and then I was finally hired on. And today I had my orientation with them. You know, my first day. And so on top of that, there is a Prius that another sister and brother-in-law of mine have owned for damn near 15 years. And the only problem is that it has a bad 12-volt battery. Overall, it still runs good, and they're just wanting to get rid of it. And for a good while now, I've been trying to find, good economical vehicles. Because I have to drive 2.5 hours back and forth once a month. And even though the truck I have right now has been absolutely great, I don't want to risk having that one fateful day to where something fucks up on it and I'm on the side of the road having to get a tow. Or I get into like a very bad fucking wreck, which would just kill me. But I got a job at Lowe's, and depending on what my schedule is looking like, I'll be getting a new car probably this weekend. Depending on the schedule and the weather, which I don't really think is much of a concern right now. The shit that we got hit with is probably the last shit we're going to get for the next couple of weeks. I hope the snow we fucking got was it. Because it shut everything down. But I got a car. Well, should be getting a car. And I got a new job at Lowe's. Now here's where all of that comes together. Alright? If I get the Prius, then I'll have a vehicle, a new daily. And I can start working on making the truck I've owned since I was 15. Or I've had since I was 15. Technically 16, but just start pushing it more to where it's a weekend rider, because it fucking deserves it. And I know I'm talking about this shit about an inanimate object, but I love it. I want to keep it as long as I fucking can. And the Prius is just going to be an extra step to allow that to happen. And when it comes to Lowe's, I've been planning at least 2 years in the future. 2 to 3 years. I've been planning on, if I do good and I stay in this company, get paid well enough, things like that, sometime this time next year, or first half of next year, I'm hoping I can have, a small home on a small plot of land, and have as much of it paid off as possible. And that's literally it. My goal from now until hopefully June or July maybe even May if I'm saving my money good enough, is to have my own place. My folks are back home, so I'll make this quick. But then eventually, what comes after that is that I save enough money to buy a dump truck, like a small 3500. I put a Facebook post out there and I talk to customers to say, just tell them, hey, you got something small like a shed or whatnot, you got junk I need to throw away. And then slowly just build up. Get my Class A so that I can haul, so that I can drive the dump with the trailer and a small excavator on the back of it. Start going on to, medium sized projects like mobile homes, things of that nature. And then if I'm good enough, if I'm consistent enough with it, there's possible money in there. So life was taking a downturn for me, but now I'm starting to see it take going an uptick. And I hope it stays like that for a good while. But besides that, that's all I got left to say. And I hope you guys take care. See ya.